Y'all, in today's installment of Visions of Glory, we're going to be walking on water. We're going to be painting happy little clouds. We're going to be going to a nice fluffy cloud kind of a place. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. The sofa's right over there. I'm right over here. The boys are being babysat today by a babysitter because they are off at a play date, if you will. And my name's Paul, if you're new to the channel. And if you're not new to the channel, guess what? My name's still Paul. Okay, so we are continuing with, bam, Visions of Glory. Okay. This is by John Pontius. This is the umpteenth part of this collection here, right? So if you're just discovering me in this first video, you're gonna be like, what? He's reading a book, whatever. Like, we're like about in the middle of this book, okay? So the way we're doing this is I'm just literally reading it. I'll make some commentary at the end of it. The reason we're doing this is we are looking at this through the lens of why does this have a chokehold on people like Lori and Chad Daybell, right? This is mentioned oftentimes in these things. So to satisfy curiosity, I wanted to read the gosh darn thing, okay? And that's what we're doing. However, I can only take little bits and pieces of it. Okay, so that's why we took a long break from it. My body rejected it to the point that I didn't think we were gonna be able to finish. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. And then I found a happy medium, which was I have to do about a 30-minute session with this, and that's about it. My body will reject the book. I will start yawning. However, after our last session, it did start to get more interesting. Okay, now also I'm gonna have to wear my glasses because at this point, y'all, I can't see. Well, not with the lighting in here and the writing. Oh, please, it's done with. So let's just get these little puppies out here. Here we go. Hello. Hello. I look like an alien with little things in my eyes, a little reflection. We are here. We are at the Tunnel of Light. And we're just going to start reading. Yes, I might go into character voices. It's just how I get through my day. Please excuse me, okay? Here we go. Okay, I looked around me and realized we were no longer before the chambers with bars, and I no longer held the key. We were in a tunnel of sorts, and I had the sensation of moving at great speed. I discerned that the tunnel was alive. Perhaps it would be more accurate to say it was part of my being. It was mine, and I had created it. My escort smiled again. That is right, it is a portal. And you created it. Only you can use it. You know, side note, there's that word portal. Okay, this is where it comes from, right? I don't know if it really comes from this, but here we go. This is, you know, if you know, you know, right? Okay, here we go. I thought about this and then I asked, so hold on, does each person make their own portal before they come to this earth? The tunnel felt like it was as much a part of me as my hand or foot. It was my understanding that this portal was how I came to this earth, to be born and how I would return to God. When I was at last finished with mortality, I could feel the tunnel, the same as one feels their arm or fingers. He seemed pleased. Yes, boy, that is correct. Everyone creates their own portal, which you now perceive as a tunnel of light, but which is just the best way for you to understand what is happening to you. It is a divine power you learned long ago, okay, which enabled you to come to earth and eventually to return to God, okay. Everyone must create their own. We were moving without walking, but it felt normal and familiar. I knew exactly how to move forward in the tunnel. It was an act of my mind, like wanting your fingers to close around something. I did not need to touch the tunnel, because that was just how I perceived this form of travel. While still limited by mortal intelligence, I was moving at the speed of thought. The far end of the tunnel was profoundly bright. The light was not coming from the end of the tunnel, but from the tunnel itself, as if it grew more divine and farther from the earth it progressed. As soon as we entered the tunnel, or the portal, I felt less mortal. Do you see the little rhyme thing we got going? The portal, immortal, and all that? Just make note of that. Okay. More empowered and divine. I could speak to my guide verbally or by thought, and he answered me just by thought. We discussed many things as we proceeded through the tunnel. Every question I thought about, I saw that event or thing in perfect detail, including its creation, existence, and present glory. It was similar to when I walked through the desk and leather couch in my first experience. This information just entered my mind and burst of my understanding. I did not have to ponder or sort it out. I simply received the answers to my questions. My memory of this experience today is that we spoke of many things and I learned rapidly. I was not allowed to retain in my mortal mind most of what I learned. Okay, now we're going into folding the universe, okay? Folding the universe. It's kind of like, you just fold the cheese, David. You just fold the cheese. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I asked, does this earth have a tunnel of light? The scriptures inform us that the earth is an intelligent and living thing. He answered, yes, God provided a similar means for the movement of the earth to where it is now. I then experienced, as if it were actually there, how the earth fell from where it was created and moved to where it positioned now. I had the impression that it took thousands of years for it to arrive. The image I saw appeared to me to be a folding of the universe. It looked like the universe was folded in on itself, like a sheet of thick paper or fabric, so that where the earth was created and where it was to go were on top of one another. The earth was then moved from where it emerged and physically transitioned to its new position. This moving of the earth occurred during the entire creative process. By the time it arrived, it was prepared for mortal man. I also saw that when it is time for it to return to its original location, the universe will again fold and the earth will be moved back to its place of, creation. The image I saw revealed that even though we only perceive one plan of existence, there are an infinite number of planes stacked or layered in the same place. These planes are not truly universes because they are less about infinite stars and suns and worlds as they are about God's organization and exhalation of all of his creations and his assigning unchanging glory and laws to each plane. Human language does not give us adequate words to describe such things. Not does human intelligence give us the ability to understand such things unless our minds are open for a moment. While I was with the angel, I could understand all of this clearly. I believe I remember most of what I saw, yet now I only have a fragment of the understanding of what it meant or by what principle it occurred. What I learned then, and what I have been following to retain, has taken me many years to acquire the words to describe, even to myself. If you consider that this is the only time I have said many of these things out loud, you will understand why I still struggle for words. I did understand that the reason the universes were folded together was because it was more efficient. The more easier doesn't apply because God has all the power and nothing taxes his power or ability. It was just more efficient. And it is the way it has always been done. There is a celestial arithmetic about this version that was amazing to behold. I realized that this mighty folding of the universe was not magic to God. It was more like brilliant spiritual technology. I saw that God possesses vast laws, principles, and science, if you will, of how to do these things within his understanding and power. They were beautiful to behold, like a divine dance with stars and planets as the performers. When men do math, there is always the infection of error and mistakes. God's arithmetic is always flawless, and I saw that the entirety of his creations were the recipients of his flawless godly engineering. All of the glorified universes I perceived were one of three glories: celestial, terrestrial, and telestial. My God, try saying that fast. There were other types, which were not types of glory. These were wonderful places without glory, where beings who had not qualified for a reward of glory during their lifetimes were ultimately sent. These were of every type, of every description, and were created in response to their desires. They wanted nothing more to do with God or his intervention in their lives. So he gave them what they wanted, whatever it was, and there they would stay throughout eternity, unable to challenge God's authority ever again. Our earth is presently of the telestial order, but before the era of man, the earth had come from a celestial plane. It was not yet celestialized, but it was created there. The transition from a celestial realm to the mortal realm is what constituted the fall and was accomplished by this folding process. When a person dies or when they have an out-of-body experience, as in my case, their own tunnel brings them back to their original place and to their original structure, which were both spiritual in nature. This power to return to God is only perceived as a tunnel of light. It is not physical and it is not actually a tunnel, but is the sure way God has provided for our spirits to return to Him. When we are done with this celestial experience, we will no longer need this tunnel between earth and God. We will then be able, as spirits, and eventually as resurrected beings, to move instantly across vast distances by the power of God that will be inherent within us. We needed the tunnel of light because a flawed mortal does not have the ability to initiate travel as does a spirit. Similar to leaving a rope dangling over the cliff so that we can climb back up, we left the tunnel of light as our sure means of returning home after we have discarded this fleshy tabernacle. Okay, the next section we're into is Meadow and Lake. Aren't those pretty names? Imagine just thinking that, just names it Meadow and Lake. Maybe a little pair of twins or something. Okay, let's keep going. Okay. I was pondering these things when we arrived at the end of the tunnel. I found myself standing in a beautiful meadow. There were fully grown trees nearby of many varieties. Some were in blossom, while others were heavy with fruit. A short distance away, a blue lake reflected the beautiful arrangement of trees and bushes beyond. There was no sun in the sky, and I understood that the light by which I perceived these things was from the sun. I was aware that there were several varieties of fish in the lake, as well as many other varieties of plants, but no other animals. The meadow and lake were striking with magnificent displays of flowers and flowering shrubs of many varieties. A narrow stream was flowing between myself and the lake, emptying into the lake with a short distance away. Just to my right, I saw a decorative fence and about 3 feet tall. It ran along the stream for a little ways. Then off to my right, there are beautiful benches built into the wall every few yards. The wall curved in places so that the benches formed an alcove for people to sit facing each other to converse. Initially, I walked around looking at the wall. I had never seen such a thing before. The wall was made of bricks of white stone, about a foot square. I sat along the wall on one of the benches and felt it welcome me, giving me love and praising God. Had I not experienced this aspect of spiritual communication and connectedness with all things in prior visions, I would have been startled, but I felt connected to everything I could see. In previous experiences of walking through desks and walls on earth, I had also understood the history of those things. Every event of its existence with these things, the wall and trees, there was no history, yet I understood that these things were almost eternal in their existence. This was a spiritual world and nothing changed, nothing aged, nothing grew old or died, or was harvested and coerced by man into some other shape. So they were just as God had created them. No change, no history. I was waiting for my guide to catch up with me and show me where to go. He had arrived with me but had not accompanied me to the meadow. I was not certain where to go without him, and I accepted that he was allowing me this interval to experience this place. I didn't know where I was, but I was also not concerned or worried. Everything was as it should be. I stood and walked to the end of the wall, stepped through the stream, and walked to the lake. The water in the stream and the lake was crystal clear. I could easily see to the bottom of the lake, which I had never experienced in mortality because of reflection or impurities in the water. I could see fish swimming as if they were birds in the air. Everything was worshiping God and welcoming me. I walked to the edge of the water and knelt to dip my hands in it. It was cool, but when I withdrew my hand, it was not wet. I stood and put my toe in the water, not in, but on. I felt like I had done this before. I just knew I could. I stepped into the water and walked out a dozen steps. I could look down all of the way to the bottom. It gave me the feeling of flying because the water was so clear. When I moved my feet, the water rippled just as water does on earth, but my foot was on a solid surface and was not getting wet. I walked back to the shore and onto the grass, and this time I decided to walk into the water. I realized that walking onto the water was something I had learned to do before. On earth, the natural response of water is to let you sink. Here, obviously, the natural response was to support you. I decided I would try again. I stepped into the water, pressing my toe a little deeper. The water came to my ankles, and I walked in a short circle, ankle deep, in the water. When I again reached shore, I was still perfectly dry. I tried again, this time up to my knees, then again up to my waist. I realized that I was actually getting into the water as much as my belief allowed me to. I finally decided to just walk into the water until I was fully immersed. The water did not resist my desire, and I walked waist deep into the water. I could feel it, but I was not getting wet. I splashed a little on my clothing and it ran off, leaving me dry. I walked deeper. I knew I was in the spirit, and my body was somewhere on earth, but I had no fear of drowning. Still, just as I stepped in over my head, I held my breath. I waited a long time before I realized that I was not experiencing a lack of oxygen. I slowly released my breath and saw no bubbles come from my mouth. I carefully inhaled and was breathing air, which I realized, or the understanding came to me, that I was remembering my body's need for oxygen. The spirit had no such need, and there was no air going in or out of my spirit, even though I had the sensation of breathing. I walked around the bottom of the lake for a while. There was no resistance to the water. I just walked as freely as on the dry ground. The bottom of the lake was like a planted garden, with beautiful floating plants and paths between them made of sand. I touched a few fishes, which did not scurry away, but radiated their small love for me. When I was satisfied, I walked to the shore and emerged dry upon the grass. I looked back at the lake, quite amazed by the experience, until I realized that this lake was not filled with H2O. It was water in a spirit state and had the appearance of mortal water, but few of the properties of water. I mean, we're getting all scientific now. Hold on now. I need to put my little science hat on, whatever that might look like. Okay, here we go. The most profound aspect of this experience so far was that everything was praising God. It did not have a voice like a human sound, but it communicated by its spirit and by its connection with all things, its love of God. I also realized that the instant I arrived in this new place, everything knew me. It all knew and respected the fact that I was after the image of God and that I had come from a mortal body. It knew that I was son of Adam, and it loved and respected me. I knew nothing of this place from any memory of mine, but I felt truly connected with it. All of these things, whether grass or stone or bricks in the wall, were pleased with their existence. They were content to be what they were, but it was also my realization that none of these things had a will. They were not capable of wanting to be anything else. This whole place and everything in it was aware, full of praise of God, but it did not have a personality, agency, or will to be anything else. As I have often noted, this is hard to describe. There are no powerful, passionate, explosively meaningful words to describe such things in any mortal language, so I admit to stumbling a little with this explanation. When you are in the spirit, words are not necessary, and anything can be fully described by a single thought and understood in totality by anyone you address. I was fully aware that this whole meadow and everything I was experiencing was here because the will of God had organized them into this existence, into this form, into this place. It had been done for God's purposes and had remained unchanged longer than man had been in existence. They had heard the voice of God call to them to assume this shape, and they still listened for his command. Their purpose was as if they were constantly asking, "How can I serve you? How can I be of value to you? This is why I'm here." Even the flowers, when I bent to touch them or smell them, were worshiping God and expressing joy in their beauty only because I had thought to myself how glorious and beautiful they were, which expression they heard and understood. Of course, I did not assume to have any authority to change them. It would not have attempted it under any circumstance. How could I improve upon something that is already perfect? Everything was at its highest level of life and vitality. When I stepped upon the grass, it was not damaged. It just received me and felt pleasure in my use of it. The colors were beautiful, distinct, and more brilliant than earth colors. There were colors which I do not believe the human eye can distinguish, but which, if I had to name, were mauves and pastels in stunning variety. I don't remember seeing animals other than the fish. This place was like a painting where the artist just wanted fish in the lake and chose to paint nothing else. It was not a reflection of mortality. It was a place God had created to be exactly what it was, to radiate beauty for the senses to behold. I was still looking at the lake when my guide returned. He asked me if I was ready to go with him now. Through all of my interactions with him and other angels, they always asked my permission to continue. Once I have given it, they often directed my attention or asked me questions, but it was always my choice to go, stay, or continue. I said, yes, I am ready now to continue. And on that note, this will be continued. Now, let's talk about a few of my final thoughts. Okay, so first and foremost, that last stuff that they're doing, talking about this place and whatnot and everything, it's giving Bob Ross painting, okay? It's giving happy little clouds, happy this, everything's connected and whatnot. First of all, let's backtrack here real quick. Okay, one of the things I wanted to go back to is that paragraph when they were talking about, I stepped out into the water and blah, 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 blah. Now, this is like a question for y'all, I guess, right? So, because I'm not familiar. Okay, so I felt like we've heard Lori and Chad talk about like the walking on water and things of this nature and whatnot. Okay, and this is the part that I'm questioning, like, I have to question y'all. Is this considered like, and I don't know if blasphemous is the right word, but almost like trying to put yourself on that same level of like, you know, walking on water, turning water, or, you know, the red wine and splitting the seas, and you see what I'm saying? Or is that like, no, that's not in this realm, that's different? Because whenever I hear like Chad and Lori trying to align themselves, or anyone in that spectrum of like the Chad and Lori people that we've watched in these cases, with them trying to align themselves and being like, I do the same things as God or Jesus or whatever, like, and again, I'm very ignorant when it comes to like the official studies of religions and the Bible and things of that nature. So, I mean, just know that. But to me, I feel like it sounds like, and blasphemous is the only word I can think of, right? I mean, maybe egotistical. I'm not sure of a proper word, but to relate it exactly to religion, because I guess I'm just like, well, isn't that reserved just for those entities and people, you know, or, you know, whatever you want to call God or Jesus or whatever, right? So for like someone, a man like Chad, Lori, or me, whatever, to be like, oh, I walked on water. Oh no, I can separate the seas. You see where I'm going with that? You know, but again, I don't know. Okay, so it's like, you know, I'm looking for a little bit of education on this, but that just stuck out to me as like one of my thoughts I wanted to go over here. Okay, and then also just overall, what I want to say is like reading this is like touchy, feel good, everything's happy, everything's connected. And what's coming to my mind with this is literally I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, think about you're out in traffic, you're doing this, you're doing that, you got your list of stuff to do. Maybe you have a happy marriage, maybe you don't, daily stress, whatever you got going on, right? Listen to the picture that they're painting here in this book here, in this particular thing right here. That sounds so much more interesting and intriguing than the daily doldrums, right? Of course that wouldn't be alluring, you know what I'm saying? And I think you could speak to that for a lot of religious stuff, you know, especially when it's like that. So, but again, rounding it back out to Lori and Chad, where I'm like, okay, but they specifically were like, you know, doing this whole, well, first of all, it took an evil turn, number one, but the way that they were just like, we're going to be the leaders and we're this and we're that and blah, 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 and talking about this and that. You know, where did it all go off kilter? You see what I'm saying? Also, for just, you know, again, looking at the evilness that came from them, how do we go from happy little Bob Ross clouds to killing our kids and spouses? You see what I'm saying? And again, with this, you know, and I'm not even talking about the person who wrote whatever. I'm looking at what we have read so far in the hands of somebody who's disturbed, right? As we've seen what happened, okay? I am looking at this in the hands of people that we have all seen in the cases that we follow, reading into this. Not a good mixture. Not a good mixture. Again, I mean, even I reading that last little passage, I was like, this makes me feel good. Like the thought of like on a meditation level, take it, whatever your religion is, or if you don't have it, whatever, take that out. On a meditation level, talking about everything's connected, you're in this beautiful place. I mean, I was putting myself there and I was like, this is relaxing. Now y'all are like, oh Lord, Paul's going to, tomorrow I'm going to be coming out with a video talking about 144. I'm the real 144 leader. No, we're not. We didn't go down the rabbit hole that much, don't worry. Right? We didn't do all that. But again, I'm just seeing the allure. And then when they get in there and they have, I'm talking about people like Chad or whatnot, the plethora of personality disorders that we've seen play out, right? Mixed with this, walking on water, this and that, multiple lives. I have all the answers. I've been to this beautiful place. Let me tell you. You know, you can see where I'll add it up. Okay, so that being said, if you could drop some little sofas off in our little happy place, the comment section, so that me, Rosco, and Spirit The boys who are being babysat have a place to hang out and talk to you in the comment section about this book, this case, all the cases, all the stuff we talk about here at the Sofa Squad. And until we meander our way down to our happy little place to paint happy little clouds and talk about happy little comments, I'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. And then like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Rosco on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.